Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the table at a dance competition? Exactly what are the judges looking for anyway? This is Making the Impact, a dance competition podcast. Each week, we'll cover a different topic related to the world of competitive dance from the perspective of the judges behind the table. One of the rites of passage for dancers of a certain age is dancing on pointe. But is pointe right for every dancer? Today on Making the Impact, we're joined by two professional ballet dancers and educators who are here to school us on the importance of proper training for pointe, trusting your teacher, and trusting the process that leads to this achievement.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Making the Impact. I am your host, Courtney Ortiz, and I'm here with my co-host, Lesley Mealor.
Dun-da-da! Hello, it is time for this week's episode of Making the Impact, and first of all, I can't believe it's already like May, like tomorrow.
It's crazy!
What?
It's like truly flying by.
Yeah, every year, it's so quick, but it's so long. While we're in it, it's long. When you're looking back at it, it was quick. So Here we are.
Here we are. We're nearing the end of Making the Impact Season 7. Especially since we are doing bi-weekly episodes this season. So we only have a few more brand new recordings to bring to you, but I hope you all have been enjoying our episodes this year. And I know I have because we've had some really great chats and some awesome guests that have joined us on Season 7. And this week is another great episode.
Yeah, we've got two brand new podcast guests from a world that we don't get to talk about as often as we probably could or should. We're in the ballet world, more specifically pointe. And our guests today are masters in their field, I would say.
Yes.
They work for companies that you have heard of, that you have seen perform, and we're so excited to learn from them today.
Yes, I cannot wait. But before we jump into our episode, since we are in the heat of the season, we have some Making the Impact Award winners to share with you. I'm sure you've heard us talk about this award that is sponsored by Impact Dance Adjudicators and Making the Impact podcast. And these awards are distributed at IDA-affiliated competitions that have at least one IDA judge on the judging panel, and your IDA judge or judges will select one dance from the entire weekend to be crowned the Making the Impact Judge's Choice Award winner. And by winning this award, you not only receive a shout out at the event and a beautiful plaque that you can display at your studio for forever, but you also get a live shout out on the podcast. So let's hear some of our recent winners.
From Just Dance Invitational's event in Bozeman, Montana, congratulations to Soul Dance Company and Academy from Great Falls, Montana for their small group Genius of Love.
From Gems Dance Competition's event in Duluth, Minnesota, congrats to Stacy's Studio of Dance Education from Duluth, Minnesota for their large group Somebody to Love.
From Oro Dance Competition's event in St. Louis, Missouri, congrats to Slay Dance Center from Bonne Terre, Missouri for their duo trio, The Chain.
And from Decca Dance Competition's event in Providence, Rhode Island, congrats to Summit Dance Center from New Bedford, Massachusetts for their small group, Where I Wanna Be.
All right, we look forward to sharing more Making the Impact awards as our season continues. And as always, we'd love to tell you about our sponsors today.
Dance educators, leaders, and innovators. This one's for you. Get ready for the Dance One Summit in 2026. The experience for studio owners and teachers shaping the future of dance to unite, share, and inspire. This is where passion meets growth, where creativity meets business strategy, where you connect with a powerful community that understands your hustle. Attend the Dance One Summit for impactful movement classes, hands-on workshops, business seminars, and exclusive industry insights. Plus, an epic expo hall packed with the latest in costumes, tech, and tools to elevate your studio. Whether you're looking to strengthen your teaching, build your business, or spark fresh inspiration, the Dance One Summit is where it all comes together. Coming to you this summer 2026. Mark your calendars for August 13th through 16th in New York City. And we have an exclusive promo code at Making the Impact for $100 off your registration. Use the promo code 100SUMMIT2026. That's the number 100SUMMIT2026 for an extra $100 off your registration at the Dance One Summit. Learn more and secure your spot today at danceonesummit.com.
Dance World, we are back and we are here talking about a highly requested episode topic today because we're talking about pointe for training in dancers. Now, every single dancer who goes through ballet wants to make it to the point, see what I did there? To the point in their career where they get to strap on those pointe shoes and see what it's like to feel like a professional ballet dancer. And I think that pointe is always a really great achievement for dancers, but it takes a lot of training, a lot of dedication, a lot of time to get there in our ballet training. And it is not something that should be rushed. There is a process, and your ballet teachers know about that process. But we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this conversation today with two brand new guests and both professional ballet dancers with well-known companies that you all have heard about and maybe have even seen perform live in person. I'm very excited to welcome our very first guest, who was a principal ballet dancer with the New York City Ballet for many years. She's going to tell you all about her, and she has a really big following on her YouTube channel, over 350,000 subscribers. So go check that out as well. I'm very thrilled to welcome Kathryn Morgan to our podcast. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you for having me. It's an
So
honor to be
welcome.
here.
Yes,
Thank
thanks for
you.
squeezing us in. I know you're so busy, killing the game, and I'm sure you have so much to share on this topic.
How long do we have? Actually,
Right.
Just to give people a brief little synopsis, I'm a former soloist with New York City Ballet and Miami City Ballet. I have had my ups and downs throughout my career, and I was kind of the baby ballerina there at New York City Ballet. Had a dream career in 5 years, was promoted to soloist at 21, and then fell off a cliff at 22 with an autoimmune condition, and ended up leaving the company. Very long, story short, and kind of battled through that process while getting back to dancing and joined Miami City Ballet for a year. And since then, I have freelanced. I have my YouTube channel. I'm very outspoken on body image in ballet and dancer mental health, and just kind of have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. So, and pointe is actually something that I'm very passionate about teaching. I think it should be taught a very specific way. So I have a lot of thoughts on that. So I'm excited to be here to talk about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to learn from you because I have to admit, I'm a dancer and I do all styles, but pointe is not one of them. So
it's fine. It's its own beast. It's its own beast.
I think you're doing fine without it, Courtney. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I dabbled in it and I tried my hardest. And then it was like a requirement in college. You're like, you got to do it. And I was like, really? But I have the flattest feet ever. So I sadly quit pointe. And I do regret that, everybody listening. I regret not keeping up with my pointe. And maybe we'll talk about that later. But Kathryn, I can't wait to learn from you today on this chat. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Our next special guest is joining us straight out of the rehearsal room, literally, because they are dancing currently with the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. And I can't wait to get to know them even more. I am very excited to welcome Tommie Lynn to the podcast. Welcome, Tommie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you all today.
Yay. And your very first podcast appearance. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know it's tough to squeeze this in because you're in rehearsal right now. So thank you for sharing your time with us on your lunch break.
No problem at all. I'm happy to do so.
Well, if you could share a little bit more about you, where you grew up, how you got into ballet, and how you are now dancing with Pittsburgh Ballet.
Yes, of course. So I am a principal dancer here at PBT. I grew up actually in the competition world, so I know a lot about this side of things, and I ended up choosing to go the ballet route. And I trained here in Pittsburgh, born and raised, and then did a summer at SAB, did a summer at Miami, ended up staying there for a year for the Miami's, graduate program. And then I got hired here as soon as I turned 18 in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And then I ended up getting promoted to soloist days before COVID shut us down. So I was 19 years old
Wow.
when I got promoted to soloist, but it was a total womp womp. You're a soloist, but you're not going to get to do anything
Hooray!
for, Yeah. But of course, a dream. And then most recently promoted to principal at the age of 22. And I was recently on the cover of Point magazine, which is really
Yes, you
That's so
were.
cool.
exciting.
Which makes you even more perfect for this point discussion
I
because the
know, I was like,
Point
point.
magazine. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on all your success so far in your dance career. And I love the tie in of you being a competitive dancer. I think this will be really eye opening to hear for a lot of the dancers who are currently there and growing up and maybe have dreams of becoming a professional ballerina or ballet dancer one day, that they can hear your story and your journey. So thank you for being here, and let's jump in.
Yes, let's dive right on in. All right. Well, thanks y'all for being here. I too am very excited to learn more. We have so much to cover today. So I'd like to get started by asking both of you, just for your personal experience, when did you start Point? And do you feel like that was the right time for you to start Point, you personally?
I started Point when I was 11, and I had been, I mean, I'm a born and bred dancer, wanted to do nothing else. So I started ballet at 3, really started serious dancing at maybe 7. So by the time I went on Point at 11, I was ready. I had great training, great teachers at Mobile Ballet in Mobile, Alabama. And yeah, I really think they did a great job with us. What was very interesting, and this is something we can talk about, is our entire class didn't go on Point. I think that's a common misconception where it's like, okay, everybody, let's just get the shoes and go. And they did a very good job of evaluating like who was ready, who wasn't, which is a tricky thing when you're 10, 11, 12.
Sure.
Right.
But yeah, I went on Point at 11 and I wore throwback Repettos.
Okay.
Tommy, I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Repettos.
Yes,
And I
I
wanted
have.
them. You have, they were like the pinkest ones, like bubblegum Barbie point shoe pink. And that's what I went on Point with. And I was happy about that. So yeah, I really do feel like I was ready to go.
Awesome. And what about you, Tommie?
Yeah, I went on Point as well when I was about 11 years old. My whole class went on Point. I remember we were like a really strong group, small class, but I still remember that day. You know, we had a digital camera and we all got printouts of us like posing with our Point shoes, which is really sweet. I went on Point first with Tiffany, the Capezio Point shoe that they no longer make. And I actually stuck with that shoe for a long time. I loved that Point shoe, but
Nice.
I believe it was the Tiffany, unless it eventually, what they kind of evolved into the Tiffany was my first shoe. But I know it was a Capezio. I've been a Capezio girl since I was like born. My first little ballet shoes are Capezios with like the flowers on them. But I definitely felt like I was ready. Yeah, it was so cute. I definitely felt like I was ready for Point when I went on Point, but my competition dance background, I feel like made me really strong. I was definitely one of the stronger girls in the class. And you know, my leg muscles were very developed and I definitely felt secure. I remember feeling like when I was up on Point that in those early days that I felt like I could be there. And a lot of girls were more uncomfortable or struggling with the sickle and stuff like that. But I do think that that almost cross training that competitive dance does was really useful to me.
Oh, that's really nice. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
I work like the farthest away from Point shoes. When I came on board, I was like, there's, Point shoes, as we can probably talk about, are very complicated. They have to be exactly right for you. They can be really detrimental if they're not. And I was like, I'm going to stay over here in jazz shoe, tap shoe, ballet shoe land. So we have another Point shoe person. But yes, I'm very fully aware of the Tiffany. And my first Point shoes were the Pavlova, which was another very bright bubblegum pink, looked very much like the Repettos. Tiny little brick sized, like little size 4 shoes, just running around with no, I had no business being on Point. I was at 10 years old.
Also, we should point out to people who don't know, because you work for Capezio, like, so the common misconception about Point shoes is like, oh, it's steel or it's wood and you're like standing on blocks. No, it's paper mache covered in satin. That's essentially what a Point shoe is. That just popped into my head while we were talking about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially for parents that don't know.
Sure. There's a lot of and there's different parts to the Point shoe, and when you get fitted, you have to really go to someone who's knowledgeable about all the different brands, because what brand works for Kathryn's not going to work for Tommie most likely, or what style. There's a lot of things that go into it. So this is your PSA to do not buy a pointe shoe on Amazon or Temu
Correct.
or Shein. Like, go to your local store, and if you don't have one, there's people across the nation who do virtual pointe shoe fittings.
Yep.
You know, you can get consults and everything. So you got to do it right, because as we will discuss, there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't do it right.
Yeah, I think that's like the hardest part when you're first getting on point is what shoe works for me. And then it's just like trial and error. And then parents are getting so upset because they're like, well, I just paid $60 for the shoe. What do you mean it doesn't work?
$60?
It's like,
what do you mean $60?
I don't know. How much do they cost?
Yeah,
How
I
much are they?
wish, yeah.
Obviously don't do point. So
Tell me what, if you don't mind telling us, what shoe do you wear now, and do you get provided shoes from your company?
Yes, I do get provided shoes by PBT. That is like a godsend, of course. As a principal, I go through like 1 to 2 pairs a week, probably sometimes 2
wow.
to 3. But
Crazy.
yeah, but I wear Anchor Maker by Freed, and they're custom to me. So cut down sides, 3/4 shank, all of the specs that are, specific to my foot. We have the Freed pointe shoe fitter come to PBT once a year and get everyone refit, make sure that the shoes that you get in are perfectly fit to your feet, which I think is really, really useful to help prevent injury and just like a check. Okay, I tried these on this day. Maybe my foot was swollen, but once the pointe shoe fitter left, I'm like swimming in them. Let's check again. Or like your feet change a lot over time. After the summer, I feel like my feet like widen and spread, and
Yeah.
my pointe shoes feel tighter. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I'm really happy in my shoes right now, and Anchor Maker is retiring. So
Uh-oh.
that's how that goes. As soon as I found,
wow.
my match, then you have to kind of start looking for another one. But I have like 200 on stock, so I'm
Okay.
good for a
You're
while.
set for a little while.
Yeah,
really
so I don't
good.
have to worry about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Was that the same experience for you, Kathryn, while you were dancing? Were you getting custom shoes from all the companies?
Yes, when you're at SAB for the year, you get that we have the pointe shoe room at the school. I was there 20 years ago now at this point, so I don't know if this is the same, but we would get the company rejects because with New York City Ballet, they have such a tight relationship with Freed. We at the time as a company member would get maybe 30 pair a month and barely made it. Barely. It's like Tommie said, like you're like gluing the heck out of them, like please last. But then, if there was a back pile, you could have your reject shoes. So this one was weird because they're all handmade, at least the Freeds are. And so some might come out a little wonky or lopsided. And so the students got the rejects and could buy them, I think, for $20 each, which was nothing.
Yeah.
And then when we were in the company, we did the trials and you could custom. At the time, I believe core and soloist had to wear Freed. I think principals got a choice. But I would say 95% of City Ballet wears Freed and still does. And yeah, I just remember like you can tweak it within an inch of its life, that shoe, to really custom fit to your foot, which is so nice.
Wow.
Yeah, because everybody's feet are different. Everybody's needs are different. There's so many factors that go into it. But let's back up a little bit, because I think we've like now gotten into shoes before we've gotten into like what do your feet even need to be able to do by the time you get a shoe. So Kathryn, in your experience, since you're doing a lot of teaching online and other places, I assume, what do you think physically? Are you doing any sort of testing prior to putting kids on point, that they need to be able to, achieve certain milestones before you're going to do that? Or what's your process like?
100%. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've been teaching at the Dance Academy in Southern California in Orange County. And I've put multiple classes on point over the years. And these dancers are anywhere from they're around the age of 9, 10, 11. And for 6 months prior, for what I require is we do 6 months of pre-pointe. So we are doing TheraBand. We are doing slow-legged eleves. And if you try and get a 10-year-old to do a slow-legged releve, they're like looking at you like you've taken away their birthday. Like it's rough. It is not the easiest process. So I like literally killed their calves, tendus, releves, jumping for 6 months. And once I know that they have that solid releve, I'm seeing the calf muscles develop we're not rolling to the outside of our pinky toe. That's a big one for
Yep.
me, because with little kids, their bones and their joints are still developing. And so they will have a tendency to be loosey-goosey
Yeah.
and go to the outside pinky toe. So it's this whole process and system, so that once, like half the year has gone by, they're pretty much ready and they all go right up. But it is a lot of work. It is a rite of passage for any dancer. It is something you have to really put your brain into. We all had to, and work for it. You can't just decide one day you want to go on point.
Right.
So there are specific things like that I look for. Calf strength is essential. I cannot emphasize like demi-pointe releves and tendus and dégagés and all your normal bar work in flat shoes. That is what's going to set you up the best for point work. So that has to be in place before I even consider putting them in a shoe.
Yeah. I love that what you said about the demi-pointe and the releve, and even like in pre-pointe. Yeah. And the understanding of like how to articulate your ankle properly, because I feel like that I see dancers on flat releveing to their pinky, sickling in their releve, but then they're like, but I do point at my studio. And I'm like, but you're in flat, you're not even doing a releve properly. So why have we put them on point when I can tell on flat that it's not, the technique isn't there just yet and needs to be a little bit more perfected before we strap on an advanced level shoe that really needs proper alignment and strength, because you're supporting your entire body on the top of your foot.
Exactly. And it, like we said earlier, they're paper mache. You're not standing on much support at all.
Right.
And for me with these kids, I like them to have at least 2, maybe even 3 or 4 solid years in ballet training before we even consider point. It's not okay, well, I've done ballet for a year, let me throw on a point shoe. For me, they have to have a solid technique foundation to even go on point. Even though I'm not teaching there anymore, that is something I will continue to require no matter who I'm teaching.
Right. Well, and Tommie, in your experience, like, so we say these words, and our podcast listeners know how Courtney and I feel about this. When we say a solid year of ballet training, what does that mean to both of you? Tommie, I'd love to hear from you first. What does that mean?
Yes, I think that means it needs to be a full focused technique class. As far as ballet goes, you're in tights and a leotard and your hair's in a bun. It's not basically that boring class you have to get through to get to your jazz and your contemporary and everything else you want to do at a competition studio. I have been there. When I started, ballet was like my least favorite form of dance, and I would hide and refuse to put on tights because I had really mean ballet teacher. But then I found a ballet teacher that I loved, and I grew to like really love the discipline of ballet class. And then I ended up signing up for more supplemental. And I really don't believe that the 1 or 2 classes you get a week at a competition studio is enough. If you're wanting to be on point and do well on point, not risk getting injured, it's not something you can just strap the boots on for the center of your competition ballet class. I think it needs to be a really focused environment, because the truth is point doesn't fix technique. It really just magnifies the technical problems that you may be having. It doesn't fix those technical problems, and it can make the health of a dancer, especially when they're developing so young, like you said, their joints, their bones aren't fully developed. And if you put them on point too soon, you could risk the rest of their dance career, whatever avenue they want to go, they could have long-term problems from that. So I think it's really important that you're in a very focused and controlled environment for that. I've seen a lot of, I also teach around the Pittsburgh area, and I've seen a lot of students who I'm like, I don't know if you should be in point shoes, but it's that calf control, like Kathryn said. I still do the pre-pointe work every day because I want to have a long and strong and healthy career. And I'm in point shoes for 7 hours a day. Wow. So if I'm not, supplementing my calves and also the recovery side of that as well, then I also risk that injury. And I'm, fully developed and a professional dancer. So imagine for these young girls trying to get on point, how important that is.
I'm so glad you said that about the disciplined class, because that is also something that is so important. And actually that I have stressed to them is day one, I sit down with them with the shoes. We don't put them on. And every year I held them up and I said, this is not a toy.
Mm.
This is not playtime.
Yep.
These are dangerous. And so if you are in a disciplined class, you know, we as the teachers also have to be able to trust them that when I turn my back looking at another student, you're not hanging on the bar trying to do pirouettes and are going to break your ankle. And then we have a big problem.
Right.
So it's also that, I'm so glad you said that like focused, disciplined class that you have been in for several years, like learning how to motivate yourself, follow directions. And so that we as the teachers can trust you to put you in those shoes.
Oh, the trust aspect is huge. I mean, how many
Yes.
times, even this is like younger kids too, but even some of the kids who'd be that age to start point, you turn your back and you look over and they're just over here doing a cartwheel. They're
Yeah.
over here like having no
Yes.
spatial awareness and trying to do a fouette, and you're
Mhm.
like, we haven't even gotten to single pirouette yet. Yeah, so there's a trust aspect. I'd love to hear, so 1 class a week, 2 classes a week, 3 classes a week. If it's a really focused class, can we cut it down to 2, or how much are we talking?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say at least 2 or 3 times a week. Ballet, you're talking about ballet, not
Ballet,
point.
yeah, ballet
Okay,
and leading towards point.
I'd say 2 to 3, because, you know, they're young.
Yeah.
So I'd say 2 to 3.
Great.
Yeah, I
Same.
agree, but I would say the pre-point class should be, an extension of that. I don't
Yes.
think that you're going to get a full technique class and pre-point all in one.
Sure.
The way I've seen it structured is like a ballet class and then 30 minutes of pre-point,
Yeah.
45, whatever, it may take. But I definitely think they should be separate focused classes.
And same
Absolutely.
question in the sense of once we've now put the shoes on, is it still a separate class that is focused towards point only, or are the dancers doing the ballet class in their point shoes up to a point? What does the structure look like for a studio? Or this could be helpful for studios to know, oh, I never thought to structure my classes like this. Oh, maybe I should do that if I'm introducing point. Should it be bar on flat and then we have a point class after? How is that looking?
I think for me, it's a separate class. They still need to be doing ballet technique as they have been.
Mm.
Just like Tommie said, it's not going to, like, point is going to highlight what's wrong. And so it's like, you've got to still have your basics. You've got to still have your ABCs. You still have to be doing ballet. And then point class should either be a separate class where, you warm them up and then we put the point shoes on. Because for me, they also don't leave the bar for at least 2 or 3 or 4 months. Or you do it at the end.
Mhm.
Like, we did our jumps, we did our things, great, we're warm, put the shoes on, go back to the bar, which is also very difficult for children, which is
Yeah.
why it's almost better to have it as a separate class, because to re-harness the focus after we're jumping across the room is very difficult.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say have it be a separate class if you want the most success.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kathryn. I think that was perfectly put. I remember for a while we were doing the structure of like the last 15 minutes when we first start. You put on your point shoes because you want to go low and slow, kind of. But I remember, and I taught point over the summer and pre-point, that like reining it back in after a Grand Allegro is like, this is impossible. So I do think the separate class structure is great. And when I was teaching the young girls who had just started point this summer, what some of them did if they weren't ready for more is they would do the first 2 to 3 combinations on point. They would take them off and they would continue to take point class on flat because maybe they needed a little bit more pre-point. But it wasn't enough to hold them back from getting their point shoes, but they still need to build a little bit more strength for the more complicated combinations, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so important, like we've already mentioned, the trust of the teacher. I think a lot of parents want to get their kids on point as soon as possible, or we feel like that there's a timeline in age. And I do think age comes into play a little bit. I'm curious to hear how y'all feel about dancers who are like 7 and 8 on point that sometimes we see, which Kathryn shaking her head, no. And
Big
it's
X.
big X and a no. I think age is there as like a timeline period of when this could start happening, but it sounds like at the end of the day, it really comes down to strength and technique and readiness. in how much work you've put in to be ready. It might not happen until you're 12. It might not happen until you're 13. It might not happen until you're 14 because of when you started dance, how much time you've put into it. And you have to make sure your body is ready and able to handle this new layer of training that you're adding to your ballet classes.
For sure. I mean, there's no rush because with point work especially, it is so hard to go back and fix bad habits. If you've developed it wrong, it's like it's almost impossible. And so I feel like with some of these parents or even children who are like, my kid is 8, I want to go on point. My kid is 9. It's like, why rush it? I had a partner once say to me, Andrew Vayette, who's a former principal with City Ballet, he would say things like, it takes longer to rush. And so if you're rushing the process that young, it's just going to set you up for failure later. It's not actually going to benefit you in any way. There is so much time, and it's better to go long and slow on this process.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest mistakes is pushing those flexible dancers to get onto point too early just because they have the beautiful feet or whatever. I think that why I feel the parents maybe push their kids and want them to be on point sooner is because that's that next tier is, oh, look at what my daughter can do and she can do it on point. But it's about what you can do once you're on point. You know, just like you said, this point shoe is not a toy. It's also not a costume. And it's not something that you should just put on to, make people see, oh, she has point shoes on and she's doing this solo. It's about what they can do when they're out there on point. And I think more often than not, the dancers with those beautiful legs and feet and extension can have more strength problems because if you are that hypermobile, you need to do 3 times the amount of strength and conditioning, in my opinion.
Yep.
To be able to support those extreme lines that you have, which are beautiful, but don't put your kid on point too soon and risk, ruining that. They could then have really weak arches or just the, tendons and ligaments aren't developing right because they're pushed to an extreme too soon and supporting all their body weight.
Dance studio owners and dance teachers, this is your invitation to lead smarter, not harder. The Dance One Summit knows great studios and amazing teachers aren't built by accident. They're built with clarity, strategy, and strong leadership. That's why at Dance One Summit, they offer unique seminars like Business Boost and Lead. 2 focused experiences designed specifically for studio owners, directors, and teachers ready to grow with intention. Business Boost dives deep into the realities of running a studio, from enrollment and retention to team culture, systems, and sustainable growth. This is about practical tools you can put into action immediately. And Lead is where leadership meets purpose, helping you build culture, curriculum, and artistry in the classroom and beyond. Come experience all that the Dance One Summit has to offer this summer in New York City, August 13th through 16th, 2026, and walk away with the mindset, structure, and support to lead your studio and classrooms forward. And don't forget to use our exclusive promo code for $100 off your registration to attend. That's the letters DOS, the numbers 26, IMPACT for $100 off. Click the link in our show notes to register now, and we hope to connect with you this summer in New York City at the Dance One Summit.
We see this so often in competitive dance with all sides of it now, with the added level of contortion and gymnastics that are being introduced. Now we have these really hypermobile dancers who are extra bendy but are lacking that strength. And like you said, then add a point shoe to the mix. And it's just like, okay, we gotta go back to the basics that Kathryn was just talking about that are so important. We can't forget those basics, but because they feel like they've checked a box, oh, I've got my shoes, I've made it to point. Basics, I don't need them anymore. Who needs that? I have a beautiful line. I can get up onto my box. Look at this picture that I made. But when you watch them as a dancer trying to execute the variation or the sequence, there's a lot of things that we got to continue to work on. There's a lot of issues in the technique and the execution of that. It's not just about the picture all the time.
Well, just like we always talk about, it's about the transition. It's like a lot of people can do a really nice arabesque, but how did you get out of it? How did you get into it?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like Courtney said, when Courtney and I judge competitions, yes, we do see point, but it's kind of infrequent. And that's the reason, like, I sit back and every time I see a person with point shoes come out, I tense up just a little bit because I don't know what's about to happen. I don't know if this is early or late or you're, ready to go, or I'm going to be worried the whole time. Mm-hmm. And it's always really refreshing when I see somebody have the technique to back up the next step, which is being on point.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I'm just kind of like, what are we doing? Because not everybody needs to be on point. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. And that's nothing to say that you're not going to be successful in whatever journey you want to pursue with dance. But, there are some ankles that just are not going to be able to have that flexion and extension, or they have too much. And if you are hypermobile, sometimes it's just not going to work. And have you guys ever experienced a student that, anatomically, it's just not gonna work for them?
Yes. And it's, for me, it's the flexibility at the top of the ankle joint.
Mm.
If that's not fully opened and it's locked, no matter what you do, you can't get over your shoe, because being on point is in your absolute most pointed foot. And that's what I even say to them when I'm teaching. I'm like, guys, these are point shoes, not sit shoes. We are actually pointing our feet in a point shoe.
Yes.
And so that is, again, going back to the basics, why the tendus are important, why the dégagés are important. And I will give them a lot of tendus and dégagés in their point shoes, because you also now have to resist the ribbon and the elastic. But it's that openness in the ankle joint that is so important. And some kids, unfortunately, and people in general, just are built with that locked up. And no matter how much you try, sometimes it just won't open.
Right. And it's dangerous to dance on the back of your box, right? You have to be on the center of that box and slightly over sometimes, depending on what you're doing. And you're going to break the shoe down incorrectly. It is going to create more instability. So, and that's typically what I see. I either see at competitions people with dead shoes and they're falling forward because there's not enough support in the shank anymore. Or they're not even broken in because they've never gotten fully on their box. They're way back on the back. And that's, that's stressing out parts of your leg and your calf and your ankle that shouldn't be doing any work, right? But you're having to compensate for the fact that you're not all the way over. And that just always kind of breaks my heart a little bit when I see that happening on stage, because something went wrong in the process of getting them to this space. And where did that breakdown occur?
Yeah, I think the same way that we have to trust our students as teachers, the students should also be able to trust their teachers, that if they are being held back a year maybe to do point, that it's for a reason. They haven't developed these muscles they need, or they maybe have more range of motion in their ankles to go that they can build on flat right now. And like you said, some people anatomically aren't made for it. And I find a lot that when they don't have that flexion in their upper ankle, that they then bend their knees to get up over their box. And then that causes problems everywhere. I think if your trunk is out of alignment because you can't get over your point, that just shows the trickle down effect that it's going to cause problems in your hips, your knees, your ankles, your calves. And it just truly is a trickle down effect. But that, what you were saying about the dead shoes on stage as well, it's like, that goes back to the same thing of they're not costume pieces.
Right.
For competition dancers, the younger dancers should be in a hard shoe. Their foot isn't going to look like, mine or Kathryn's on stage, where we've built the strength and we can also have that aesthetic in our point shoe. They're going to be in very hard point shoes, and that can support them, while they need that. And I see dancers, breaking their shoes so that they get that line, but then they don't have the muscle to back it up yet. So that's where it also gets dangerous. If you're bending your shoes so that you can have a certain look, whether it be on stage or in class, then that's also a problem, because you're risking injuring yourself.
Right. Yeah. And there's such, there's so many pop culture memes and things that you see dancers and they're banging their shoe. You see dancers and they're bending their shoe. That's just what you see, because that's sort of idealized. And I think the reality is sometimes you don't even need to do any of that. You just need to work through your shoe. And nobody wants to do that because that's work.
It's hard.
Meanwhile, you could slam your shoe in a door and call it a day.
I say to them all the time, sew and go.
Yeah.
We sew, we go. We don't, just because Bella Boylston is doing something to her shoe on Instagram,
Right.
she has worked for this her whole life. This is like, your point shoes are built the way they are for a reason, especially
Mhm.
for younger kids. Like Tommie was saying, like kids don't need to be in dead shoes.
Mhm.
And actually, I know as a parent, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine. And when I'm speaking with parents, they don't quite understand. Well, I just bought
Right.
these. What do you mean they
Mhm.
don't last a year?
Yeah.
And actually, it's so dangerous for your child to be dancing in what we call dead shoes.
Mhm.
And they need the support. And oftentimes with dead shoes, you're either a go over
Mhm.
or sometimes you're a pull back. For me, when my
Mhm.
shoes are dead, I pull back.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so the parent will all of a sudden be like, well, like she's not even getting over them anymore. How are they dead? And I'm like, well, that's one way that can die is you're just mush. And so as frustrating as it is, like it does take you having to get a lot of shoes here and there, especially when you're going on point.
So all of these, like the mention of the dead shoe, when you are watching a dancer, a training dancer with your eye, your professional eye, and maybe also speaking on behalf, Lesley and I, we both judge. I want the parents and the teachers to understand, can we as professionals tell when it's a dead shoe versus lack of technique? Because there's a difference of understanding how to manipulate the shoe. And I don't want people to be like, oh, well, their shoes are dead and that's why they're pulling back. Or, oh, their shoes are dead. That's why they're too far over, or can we analyze the whole picture and tell, oh, there's other things going on here. And that's why this isn't happening. And it's not really just because of the dead shoe. Does that make sense? Can we like tell that? I want people to understand if we can or not, because I don't want people to think that it's an excuse.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel, Kathryn, but I feel like there's a certain like squish to
Yes.
the like look of the dead shoe that like if I see a dancer in too dead of a shoe, it just like makes me like, oh, like I feel like it hurts also. But your shoe starts to bend odd places as well, not where your foot would naturally bend. You want your foot to bend up at your arch, like up here. And I find that when people are dead, they'll be knuckling or whatever. There's different ways to tell, but that's like a surefire way to see it. Is like there's like a squish to the point shoe. Not only the platform, but the shank is just not bending properly.
That's so true. I mean, and I think, especially because I've judged YGP for many years, you can also tell if it's just based on how they walked out, like we were saying, transitions,
Yeah.
if it's a dead problem or if
Mhm.
it's a technique problem,
Yep.
or quite frankly, something else I want to stress, a fit problem.
Mhm.
Yes.
It is absolutely imperative, and I know we kind of touched on this earlier, that you go get fit in person by a professional fitter. Point shoe sizing is very different from street shoe sizing. Oftentimes I see with dancers pulling back, their vamp is either too long or too short, depending on their toe length. The wings on the side might be too hard or too soft, So it's also to give yourself the best chance, also to make your shoes last the longest. You must get professionally fit. Like it is the number one tip of anything. Don't buy them on Amazon, like we said.
Yes.
Because everybody's feet is different. And I think especially with kids, 10, 11, 12, 13, early teens, well, my friend has Freeds and I want to wear Freeds and so-and-so has, that's like the alphabet soup game of ballet schools. It's the same thing with point shoes. They want to wear Nikolai because their friend is, but they might have the completely wrong foot for a Nikolai. So there's so many elements, but it's very easy for us to see if it's the fit, if it's the dead shoes, or if it's technique. And yes, you can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah. And like we keep saying, the shoe is really a tool to help you with what you've already created. So if your tool is mushy or falling apart, or like you are only going to be as good as the tool that you're working with. You can't technique your way out of a shoe that is falling apart. Like it's just not going to work. So that's really what I can see is if your shoe is dead, I'm like, you might have this gorgeous upper body and I might see you pulling up, but like that shoe is not supporting you. So that is part of the equation is that shoe, like Kathryn said, has to be fit properly, number one, and has to still have enough life in it to do its job. Because when the wings are dying, your side to side isn't supported. When your shank is dying, your front to back isn't supported. And then when your platform is dying, your toes are on the ground. That's
Yeah.
really not what we're looking for, right? We're not Anna Pavlova
No.
truly dancing on her toes. We are people,
No.
with a support system that has been developed over 100 years or more, to support you. But that's not to say that you can just put them on anybody. The tool is only good as the tool that you have, but it also works in the opposite direction.
If I might add just to the how can you tell if it's just a dead shoe versus a technique problem? I think a good way to tell is in a soft shoe, you should really be able to roll through, but you'll see a lot of dancers, if it is a technique problem, they'll be up or they are down. It's like
Yep.
flat foot or on point. So I think as far as like using the dead shoe excuse, that's a really good giveaway is that roll through because that is that calf strength that Kathryn was talking about with the pre-point and all of that. That's the dead giveaway because anyone could be flat, and a lot of people, if they have the structure, they can be up, but it's what happens between and it's the transitions.
Completely
Yes.
agree.
100%.
I have a question about choreography when it comes to point and being like a dancer who is freshly on point and this is new for them. Let's say we want to bring it to competition or we're going to perform. Maybe they are advanced in their technique on flat. They're pulling triple, quad pirouettes. They're doing some beautiful skills. Are we scaling back the level of difficulty once we add a shoe to the mix? Or are dancers and teachers thinking, well, if you can do it on flat, then you should be able to do triple pirouette on point? So, because I feel as a judge that I've seen a lot of dances who I can tell, dancers who come out on point, maybe they're doing contemporary ballet, maybe they're doing a variation for a YAGP style, and it feels a little too advanced for where they're at. Although I feel like that if they took the shoes off, they would be succeeding really well. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
1,000,000%, especially on the ballet competition circuit like YAGP. It never, in my experience as a judge, it never helps you to have a shoe on for the sake of having a shoe on. In the pre-competitive category, which is ages 9 to 11, it is strongly encouraged that they don't wear point shoes. It's almost like a non-requirement requirement that they don't wear point shoes until they're at least a junior. And then even in that category, if you're not feeling solid, if you don't feel like you're on top of your legs, it would never be a wrong choice to either go clean and do less or just take the shoes off entirely.
Mm-hmm.
It's never like, oh, she's in point shoes, so I'm automatically going to score her higher.
Right.
Or she's automatically going to win ahead of people on flat. Never, ever, ever, ever. You want to feel really solid and good, and it's always better to go cleaner and safety first.
Love that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Kathryn said it perfectly. You should definitely not just put the point shoe on because you think you're going to get some more points. Sometimes it can do the opposite.
Right. Well, Court, I think it's very similar to when you have a really great jazz dancer and then you put her in a 3-inch heel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different experience when you are in a point shoe, when you have to plie, releve, rotate, versus when you're just going up on demi point. Your weight shift is different. So I agree, just from my perspective too. Like if you are not feeling 1000% confident in that shoe, I would also rather see you take that shoe off, put on a lovely ballet shoe, do your lovely variation, and I'm going to give you all the points.
Yeah, I talk about this often as a jazz dance educator and a heel advocate, a LaDuca advocate. I feel like that LaDuca heels are like the equivalent to point shoes, but the jazz dance version. But dancers still need a level of technique and ankle strength to support pointing all the way through an entire piece of leather. And sometimes when I see it's trendy to go on stage now and put their LaDuca shoes and their boots on, and it's like, yeah, but you're not pointing your foot at all. Do you have the ankle strength to support this leg line? And do you know how to keep your weight forward and all of the things that come into putting 3 inches on the back of your heel? So I kind of like to use that as a comparison because I think that the same level of ballet technique that people need to have to go into a point shoe, I expect them to have the same level to go into a jazz heel. To me, it's the same equivalent. And sometimes it hinders them than helps them when they're trying to present it on stage. And at the end of the day, it's a competition. Like, absolutely train in it, but we also need to know when we have perfected and drilled this new layer of our technique, so well enough to be able to compete it. I think that it's okay if we have to delay that and wait a little bit. It shouldn't, like we've been saying, there's no rush. So I think that, point at 12, point at 13 on stage is kind of hard. Even if you have been doing point in studio for 2 or 3 years, you're still working on that. And it's going to be a tricky thing to like throw out onto the competition stage, because then everyone thinks the level of difficulty has to be at a certain point. And that's the same in any part of competitive dance. Oh, let's throw the aerial. Oh, let's throw this trick in there. The level of difficulty is what makes people think my score is going to get higher if I put this in there. Even if it's done sloppy, who cares? And it's like, no, we all care. We don't want to see sloppy on stage.
No, we care especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tommie, I don't know if this was the same for you, but with point work, there's almost 2 rites of passage. One is getting on point, and then the second is being able to do your first solo on point on stage.
Absolutely.
And I remember that, like the first point roll, that was like the second thing you had to like work for and earn, and like it was a big deal. At least for me, it was like that was the,
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that was almost like the more exciting one too, because when you get your points, like we said, it's like you get them, you get up, and you're like, oh,
Now what?
that's what this is like. Yeah, and then you're like, now what? And then you can do like 8 releves the first day, and then you take them off, and you're like, oh,
Right.
we got photos with our point shoes, but it is a slow build. But when you get to that first achievement, that is like, that's the cherry on top. That's the, not only do I have point shoes, but I can dance in them enough to have this achievement.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. Because I feel like for so many kids on point, they might not even get that opportunity because it's not the path that the studio is taking. And they really are just like, now you're on point, and we do a recital dance on point maybe, or we just put point shoes on to be at the bar. And I mean, I think more power to you if like the goal is like, well, we want to give our kids this opportunity. We want to strengthen their feet. We want to strengthen their ankles, but like, we are not going to do the Nutcracker. We are not doing Swan Lake, But I think that's just the other part of the conversation is that like, when you as a person are thinking about, do I want to be on point? Is it because it's cool to be on point? Is it because you see a future for yourself on point? Is it because everybody else is doing it? Or like, there's got to be a reason. And I know like at 11 years old, it probably is just my friends are doing this and I want to do it too. But like, take a moment, because we have a lot of students listening. Decide if that's really what you want to do, because not only does it hurt sometimes, it's a lot of upkeep. People's moms aren't going to sit there and sew their shoes. I hope they don't. You have to sew the shoes. You have to participate in the fitting. It's not just like, mom, buy me a pair of ballet shoes. I wear a size 6. This is an ongoing commitment to your craft and to something you're participating in. That also costs a lot of money.
And
so, yeah.
Studio, same thing can be said about the studio as a whole, because I feel like that a lot of studios feel the pressure of, I must offer point to my dancers at a certain time because this is the trajectory of dance. But we don't have the level of a ballet teacher that is required. Or maybe our ballet teacher thinks that we are at that level, but maybe we're not. I mean, unfortunately, we have to kind of like look at the bigger picture here and really decide, like, is this something I can safely offer to my dancers? And I think that it is okay if that is not your studio and you can't offer that and they can seek that elsewhere. But we have to be realistic and not trying to throw our kids up on point just because it's part of owning a studio. We have to have the program to support that.
Yes. And I think another question I get, this is kind of sort of veering in a different direction, but I have a lot of parents say, well, I have a boy. Can my boy go on point? And I think we're at the day and age now where yes, but what I've seen with boys who want to go on point is it's like, oh, well, you're a boy, so you're having an easier time. Absolutely. If they want to do it, great. But you have to take the same process.
Yep.
It is a whole different, it's a whole different training. Like we were saying, like you're even more forward, is a whole different level of balance. It's a rite of passage for the girls. So it needs to be a rite of passage for the boys as well. Or male presenting dancers or whoever wants to go on point, no matter who you are, you have to be in a situation where you are going to take the time to do it because we all had to. And I think it's important for studios, like you were just saying, like there has to be somebody who knows what they're doing to put them on point.
There's no shortcuts. This is not something you can hack. You just have to put in the time. And like you said, it's a rite of passage. And it's one of those things in the dance world. there's plenty of things that we have abandoned. It's just because you had to go through it doesn't mean I have to go through it now. We have moved on. We have evolved. But this, unfortunately, we all have to do this because this is just part of the process.
Yes.
Yeah. And Courtney, what you were saying about that's exactly the route that I went. My competition studio did not offer point, and I really I really appreciate that about them because we didn't have the teachers or structure there for that. I found ballet and point elsewhere, and I'm really glad that I did. I'm glad that I didn't just get to that age of 12, that token age that people hear, oh, you should go on point at 12. And I didn't just strap my point shoes on in my competition studio and try to figure it out. There's so many programs. I would leave half a day of school and my electives would count towards ballet. My art, my gym class, those would count towards my ballet. My ballet teacher would sign off for that. So I would be able to go to ballet halfway through the day, get like really structured ballet, and then go be crazy at my comp studio. So
Yeah.
that was a really nice structure for me. And I am so happy that my comp studio did not offer point. And I like that they stayed in their lane and they knew that that wasn't where they excel, and I found that elsewhere. But they supported us in like helping us find that other avenue, not so much partnered with ballet studios, but local ones they knew had these programs. So then we would kind of find our way through that if we wanted extra ballet.
Yeah, we talk about so much about like trusting your teachers, trusting your studio, like all of those things. It is very important to trust our teachers, but we also have to make sure that our teachers and our studio understand what lane they need to stay in and be in and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and that is okay. We can't always offer every single thing, especially based on accessibility and where you're located and if you have the qualified individuals to do so. So seeking out to a ballet program, if the studio is okay with it, I think I'm totally on board with. I hope that most studios are cool with. But I also think that like if you're hearing based on this conversation, like, oh, I'm doing ballet 2 to 3 days a week, and oh, I've done pre-pointe for 6 months, and my teacher thinks I'm ready at 12, then it feels like that you've checked off a lot of great boxes to lead you in the right direction. But if you're like, oh, I've only taken 45 minutes of pointe for 6 months, and I've only done one day a week of ballet leading up to that for a year, and I'm only 10 years old, maybe that's a red flag.
And we do our recital dance for 30 minutes of that class.
You know, like I hope that this conversation gives a bigger picture for all of the parents who might not be educated on what's point and what's my studio providing me. Hopefully you're hearing straight from professional ballet dancers right here and a previous competitive dancer that these are the tools that you need to make sure that the training you're receiving is safe and appropriate for your age, your level, your ability. Final thing I'll say, just from my personal, and I'm curious, Lesley, if you, because I actually don't even remember, but did you do point, Lesley?
Yeah, I did point. I started when I was 10.
Yep, in my
pinks. Pavlovas,
yep,
which I still have. They are rock hard. There is no arch in any capacity. It's just a big, long shoe. Yeah, I did point all the way through high school, but like
not college.
Again, no.
Not pro?
Oh, no. What do you mean
like
pro?
Even just like, like as a extra, like a special skill.
No. Well, because I didn't do it in college. It was an elective. And I was like, that's not for me, so I didn't do it. The last time I put on a pair of point shoes was back when I was still auditioning. I think I went to the Phantom of the Opera audition, and then I went to the Anastasia audition because they needed, for Kathryn and Tommie, Courtney and I are both very short. So those were roles that like they were looking for short girls who did point. Oh, and I guess I put on a pair for the Radio City audition one year. But then when they were like, well, the point girls are in the bear costume, and I was like, that's not for me. So it's been a while, and my ankles, I've had 3 ankle surgeries even without being on point. So like I just have very, very loose joints, and it was not for me. And, I wish I had not devoted my time to it in high school, and, because I could have been spending that time doing something that would have helped me more in my musical theater career. I could have devoted that time towards another jazz class or towards a voice lesson, but I think because it was sort of the culture of dance everywhere, it was like, time for point. We're all going to do point now. And it's like, okay, well,
guess I'm doing this.
We just don't need to do this. We don't need to do this.
Well, I guess I wanted to ask that, and I wanted to mention just from my personal experience as someone who did go on to be a professional dancer in New York City, I knew I was never going to be a ballet dancer, and I knew that very early on. I didn't love ballet, and I don't have the feet for ballet. And I learned pointe again because rite of passage, it's part of the curriculum. And I did it a little bit in college because it was requirement. But I actually do regret not keeping up with it a little bit more to maybe an intermediate level, not like professional advanced level, but because I wanted to be able to pull out my pointe shoes when there was a musical theater audition that asked.
Yeah.
People watch me dance in ballet or even jazz and they're like, your technique is so good. How do you not do pointe? And I'm like, because I chose to stop doing it. Like I just didn't, it hurt and I didn't think I was good enough. But then I realized that there were jobs that needed
Right.
just a little bit
Just a little bit.
more, you know, like someone that can
Yeah.
actually just like do a pique
Boy,
arabesque and a,
boy.
yeah, you know. So if you've never done that, you're excluding yourself from those opportunities. And I felt like that I didn't keep up with it enough to be able to put myself into those opportunities. So I do encourage dancers to explore pointe, try it if it's offered to you. Like, don't say I'm not doing this, but like give it a shot and see how it goes. And then like, if you want to be a pro, you never know when that commercial might say, we need dancers on pointe. And
Right.
let's be real. I mean, we all have, I hope we all follow models who, what's the account
Models
on
doing
Instagram?
ballet.
Models doing ballet.
Yeah,
I mean,
at least you could.
We want
You get
to
that
prevent
job.
that. You know, we want to be the dancers who are getting hired, even if you're not at the level of our two guests here. At least you could still possibly know how to go up on your box properly, unlike, no offense to those models out there.
Offense.
Okay, offense.
Hire real dancers, please. Thank
Please.
you.
Yes.
And thank you.
But it makes you more versatile. Like, and you never
Yes.
know when you may need it. And even if you're a competition dancer, I didn't throw this in earlier, but I also did competitions for a few years when I was younger, like
Yay.
12 to 14, like Tremaine and Showstoppers and all that.
Oh,
But I remember, and that was not my thing. And so I went ballet. But ballet is the basis for all forms of dance. Like you cannot go wrong having some ballet in your arsenal, even if it's not pointe. So like for all the competition dancers out there, it's really going to help you pointe even more so for strength if you're able to. But like ballet is the classical basis for all of it. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine who's a dancer with Alonzo King Lines Ballet. And she is like the creature. Like she is beyond a stunning contemporary dancer. And she was like, yeah, I really didn't train in contemporary. I trained in ballet. Like, and she is able to, like, it's ridiculous what she can do. But she had the ballet basis. And so pointe is just going to help you strengthen that, like you were saying, and make you more versatile.
Yeah, I agree. And we love ballet over here on
we talk a
Making the
lot
Impact.
about ballet.
We do. But we're really happy to have talked about pointe because that was a lot of people were asking about when is there going to be a pointe episode, and here it is, everybody. So I hope you all enjoyed it. It was such a great chat. Thank you, Tommie and Kathryn, for being here and for your amazing careers. Kathryn, you've had such a beautiful career, and Tommie, you're still living it right now. I hope to see you on stage one day. And I'd love for you both. I know that, Kathryn, that was kind of like a perfect lead out, but I'm sure you can find another great thing to lead us out with to say because you're so good at it. But any final thoughts that you want to say? Anything we missed? Anything that you can talk to whoever you want, a parent, a studio owner, a ballet teacher, the dancers, anyone you want out there in dance world. Final thoughts on pointe today.
I think the biggest thing, especially for the parents, don't be scared of it. I think a lot of parents are like terrified their kid's going to ruin their feet if they go on pointe. I've had a couple parents be like, well, I want her to not damage her bones and joints. If it's done properly, if you have the right teacher, if you trust the teacher, trust the process, don't rush the process, you're not going to damage your bones, your joints. It's a doable process, but it has to be done correctly. So don't be scared of it. Just make sure you're in the right place for it and for your child.
Yes, to piggyback off of Kathryn, I would say that, good pointe work doesn't start in the shoe. And I think that's the takeaway that we have been talking about this entire podcast episode is that it starts way before that. It starts in your structured ballet class and it starts with your point classes that you do, and then you get that rite of passage, the point shoe. And it's constant building from there. When you get that point shoe, it's not your golden ticket to run around and do whatever you want on point. It is that discipline. It's really, really important because it can be so dangerous. So I think that would be my takeaway, is that good point work does not start in your point shoe. It starts way before that.
Thanks for tuning in to our latest episode all about point and training for dancers. Special shout out to our guests, Kathryn and Tommie, for joining us on this wonderful discussion. Don't forget to follow their careers on Instagram. You can find Kathryn at Kathryn_Morgan and Tommie at Tommie Lynn.
Don't forget to follow Making the Impact on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you want more exclusive episodes, support our podcast by joining our Platinum Premium membership for only $5 a month. Subscribers receive free Making the Impact stickers, shout-outs live on the air, ad-free listening, and exclusive access to our Q&A episodes for members only. Join now at impactdanceadjudicators.com/platinum premium or click the link in our show notes.
Be sure to check out IDA-affiliated competition Star Talent. Star Talent is excited to celebrate its 20th season in 2026. They are delighted to continue their collaboration with Impact Dance Adjudicators, featuring IDA judges on all judging panels. Star Talent holds events in West Virginia, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, with their national finals set to be held in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Their competition was designed to foster a positive dance environment for both recreational and competitive dancers. Their goal is to create an atmosphere that is enjoyable, organized, and fair for dancers, teachers, and parents alike. Star Talent emphasizes that competition is about striving to become the best dancer you can be, both in performance and attitude. Additionally, Star Talent provides scholarship and title opportunities. For more information about Star Talent and to register for an upcoming event, visit their website at startalentproductions.com or check out their Facebook and Instagram.
Coming up in the next few weeks, look forward to a throwback episode about ballet training, a conversation with former competitive dancers who are now dance parents, and another throwback for the parents.
Tune in next week for some more great episodes on Making the Impact Season 7.